the complete range of benefits that result from mining are not being well understood by the politicians. They're not being well expressed by the mining industry. At the same time, the costs that mining companies face in their operations are not well understood by the policymakers, and they're not being well expressed by the mining industry. You have to ensure that the people responsible for effectively managing the costs and risks so that we achieve the benefits, so that people can share in them, those responsibilities have to be very, very effectively defined, and people have to be held account. All people. So right now we have a situation in the world where systems of holding companies to account are very well developed, and that's okay. Companies are prepared to be held to account for their responsibilities. But they can't do everything. Others share in the responsibilities for seeing things done. Governments have a responsibility, and in this day and age, with the changes going on, communities are beginning to assume responsibilities, which is good because they want to be part of the process. They want to share more effectively in the benefits. But what goes with that is responsibility. And for those that hold responsibility, they have to be held to account. And we don't have the systems in place for holding governments to account and communities to account for the small part of the equation that they hold responsibility for. So there's some gaps in the system that are quite significant. And this comes at a time when the cost curve has overcome the price curve, and the prices have dropped in the process. So it's a very tough time for companies. You see, that's a mining project.
Yes.
This is a price curve.
Yes.
These guys are both about 60 years. It's only a 30-year period during which you're mining and getting ore out and selling it on the market, but you've got to look at a long term. But this is a 60-year price of copper over here. You could have done gold, you could have done aluminum, could have done iron ore, it doesn't matter. The art of the strategic thinking about mining is that this is the reality of the price curve in the market, which you have no idea on the long term. There's a small period of time, and this just happens to be a 60-year period, so for example, when you're generating income, but you have to make your decisions over a long period of time in order to create the pipeline that's going to maintain the stability of your company. You see, and these factors don't move all at the same time, they don't move simultaneously. And we're caught right now in a situation where the cost curve is caught up and overpassed the price curve. So things are very different than a year ago. In a lot of parts of the world, the politicians, though, are still saying, God, the prices are way up there, you're making lots of money, we got to take a bigger part of the pie. Which of course then exacerbates the decision-making process of the mining industry. But it's a tremendous impediment. It's not to blame. I'm not trying to blame anybody, because the systems just haven't caught up with each other. Yeah. And unfortunately, because of the fact that the full range of benefits isn't understood, you get demand for greater amounts of benefits when people don't realize what they are in the first place. So for example, in a country, especially low and middle income countries, the real benefit of mining from an economic perspective is because of the foreign direct investment that is attracted, and because it allows a country to generate earnings in the foreign market. So you can participate in the international market. The contribution to government revenues and to GDP is important. But the real benefit is this influx of potential investment. So here in Africa, for example, of tremendous concern is the infrastructure gap that exists right now for Africa to interact with itself. So we've got facilities that allow, in many, many countries, transport of goods and services and people to the coast, because it gets on a ship there and goes to China or the US or wherever. When in fact there's a tremendous potential for inter-Africa interaction to everybody's benefit, because Africa is awakening, Africa is emerging, and the infrastructure corridors internally and the energy systems internally with Africa that will allow Africans to interact with each other is now what's being recognized as being really, really critical. But if you're arguing about, I want more taxes, I want more royalties, then this bigger picture tends to get lost in the wash. And when we're looking long term, we have to start thinking more strategically on all of these issues. And it's very, very evident. I must tell you, there have been a couple of meetings in the last 6 months in London focused on Africa. And they've been just, to me, eye-opening and very heartwarming too, because I lived in Africa in the 1970s for several years. And at that time, Africa was in the state of an emerging set of countries, and it was really a question of bringing aid to Africa to help people move forward. It's very different right now. The growth that Africa is experiencing and has experienced in the last number of years is the strongest in the world. And the Africans themselves are taking hold of their future. And I think it's astonishing what's happening on this front. And of course, mining is a central engine, and the mining industry can play a key part of this, and it's playing a key part of it. Pieces aren't all in play, though. The pieces of the system aren't all there. And it's part of, I guess, the evolution, but this issue of recognition of everyone's responsibility, the issue of recognition that we need to hold all of the people who are responsible to account. If 4 people are responsible for something and only one of them is being held to account, the system breaks down. And that's kind of where we are right now. And that's not just in Africa, that's worldwide when you look at mining.
And how and who is going to close those gaps?
We have to do it collaboratively. It can't be government just deciding in a cupboard what to do and imposing it. It can't be the industry just going into a cupboard, deciding what's needed and imposing it on communities. It has to be done collaboratively. It has to be done together in a way that we can move forward to make a better future.